Hey everybody, I'm Garcia, and today I'm taking a brief look at Taluva, but mainly I'm looking at the expansion to the game. Taluva is a largely abstract strategy game in which you are trying to deploy your pieces into your villages in as smartly a way as possible in order to run out of them just when you need to. I'll be giving you a quick view of how the game goes. I'm not going to dive into it too much, just a quick overview. Mainly because I want to talk about the expansion, which is officially called Taluva Extension. This is 4 different modules you can add on to the game. However you see, you can add one and not the others. You can mix them all together. You can do that however you want to, all right? So I wanted to go ahead and talk about this. And so I'm going to show you the base game just a little bit first, all right? Here we go. Let's cut to the table, take a look at what comes in the extension, then we'll come on back up here, and I'll tell you what I think of it. Here's what the game might look like after a few turns. The objective of the game is one of 2 things. When these run out, you've built the most of these. If there's a tie, then you've built the most of these. If there's a tie, then you've built the most of these. Otherwise, sudden end might be if you are able to build all of 2 of the 3 types here. So if I build both these, the 3 tier ones and the little huts, I immediately win the game. On your turn, you are going to play a tile. So let's say it is going to be the yellow player's turn. I'm going to take a tile, I'm going to build it somewhere, and then I'm going to expand my settlement, or I'm going to create a new one. To create a new one, at level 1, so the floor, and you put out a single hut. If you expand, you are going to pick a land type, and you are going to put them around that entire, your entire settlement gets these huts. So let's say I pick the sand, I put 1 there, this is level 2, so it gets 2 huts there. Or you can build one of these, 1 per settlement. If the location has at least 3 spaces taken up, so if this is a situation, I can put this here. And then these have to go on a level 3 tile or higher. The way you go higher up is by having a volcano line up with another volcano below it. And you are going to remove whatever got built over. Those are out of the game. And you would grow the landscape like that. That's basically how you play Taluva. The expansion has 4 modules in it. The simplest is a 5th player color and more tiles to play with 5 players. Second module is the double hex tiles. These are going to allow you once per game, instead of drawing one of these tiles and placing it somewhere on the island, you can instead take one of the double hex tiles and play that as your play. This allows for a little bit more upward movement usually and fitting somewhere where you normally could not. So I can take this tile, line it up with that volcano there, place that there, allowing for the next play to be played up here. Third module is the ships. Each player is going to get 2 of these ships, which are a new type of building or new type of piece that the players can deploy onto their villages, and you are going to treat these the same way as you would the other ones. Run out of 2 of the different types, you win the whole thing outright, and the way they are added is by creating an empty space next to one of your places. So let's say I do this and that. And I would now be able to put one of my ships in this spot. And it takes up the entirety of that water area, water region. So somebody else could not go in there. And it must be enclosed. If it's open even a bit, I cannot put a ship in there. And that is the idea. That's all that those do. So allow you to deploy ships and act again as a new way to get rid of your pieces and as a new way to think about the way you put out these land shapes. The final module is this board here that you are going to use either on easy mode, medium mode, which you use one of these inner lines, or difficult mode by flipping this over and using this line there. It might be hard to pick that up in the video, but there is a section in the middle that is distinguished from the rest, and you are going to be playing onto the central hex there, and then continuing to play after that. But you must not play outside of the highlighted region with a piece that is too far outside. The idea is 2 corners outside is okay. Anything more than that, you may not play there. You must go somewhere else. So this limits where you can build and forces players to build upward instead of out depending on the difficulty, whenever possible. So again, this is the hardest side, but on the other side, you have a little more breathing room. Before I give you some final thoughts about the extension, let me mention Taluva for me is a game that I do like. It's certainly, again, abstract, but I like abstract games. But it is also a game that grew on me over time. I, in fact, had the original printing of this from Rio Grande Game and Hansum Gluck, and I had that for some time. I eventually did let that game go. But I reacquired the game, this time this printing, Ferti, from Ferti, and it's really grown on me. It's a game that I like a lot more now. And again, it's not fantastic. I rated a 6.5 or a 7 or so. But it is one that I do find the mental gymnastics that are required of you to be intriguing, but also very quick. And the turns are very simple for the most part. So let's talk about this extension, all right? I'm going to break down these 4 expansions or modules and tell you what I think of each. Let's go from my least to my most favorite. How about that, all right? So we're going to start with the game board expansion. This idea of using a board in order to limit where the land can grow. I like the idea, and I like the concept much more than I like the execution here. For one thing, they could have easily given me a board that actually has a hex grid on it and simply allow me to play onto that grid. Instead, this is treated as though it's free form, but it's really not. They give you a guide of a hex in the center. If you follow that guide, the board will grow systematically. They could have easily given you a grid over the entire thing, and then you don't need those loosey-goosey rules about, well, you can still place the tile if it's 2 corners hanging off. Oh, is that 2 corners? Wait, is that corner technically hanging off? I hate imprecision, especially in abstract games, so I don't like the way this was implemented. It's a nice idea. Don't like the way it's handled. So there is that one. That is my least favorite out of the 4 different modules, okay? So the next one for me is the double hex tiles. The double hex tiles are a neat idea. I like them breaking one of the central rules in the game, which is you always place one of these 3 hex tiles. And it does allow you sometimes to put a piece somewhere you were not expecting to be able to build, especially higher up. And so I like that. It allows you to deploy the towers, the 3-tiered buildings, a little more easily maybe, and so you can grow a little faster, put these in tricky places. I like this one. I think it's all right. It's not one I'm going to use all the time because it's another thing to explain. Not a difficult thing to explain, but it's one more rule to think about for something you're going to do once in the game, maybe, right? But it works. I don't have a problem with the way it functions. Next up, 5th player expansion. This game really did not need a 5th player expansion, and the main thing here is that you are going to have a turn that comes around less frequently in the game. You're also going to be fighting over land early, at least a little bit more, perhaps, but it does function. It's fine. It works well. I still prefer the game with the lower player counts. I think it's a fantastic 3-player game, for example. But it's largely the same up to 5, so I don't have a problem with that. And then finally, the ship expansion, which I do like. And I think if you are a big fan of the game, the ship expansion really does shake things up. It's going to give you a new piece, or 2 copies of that piece, and a brand new way to deploy these pieces, a new way to possibly win the game. It's tricky to do, and it can be hard to pull this off, but when you do it, it does feel good, and you are going to likely be able to pull this off more easily in a fewer player count, just because by the time your turn comes around, if you were hoping for an inlet to get closed off and become a lake or a sea or what have you in which you could deploy this, that's likely to be taken up with land or enclosed and claimed by someone else. So it's a little bit trickier to pull that off. But I do like the idea. Again, it's the one thing in the game that I feel really shakes up the foundations of what made Taluva. This idea of 3-sided pieces, 3 kinds of buildings, 3 big lets you build a temple, 3 tall lets you build a tower, this breaks that elegance, the elegance of the math, but it's cool to shake up the game. So, overall, I still like my Taluva. I think it's a good game. This expansion is largely ho-hum. I don't know if this game needed an expansion. I certainly would assume it did not need an expansion or an extension or what have you. But now that it does have one, I am kind of underwhelmed by it. I like some of the parts of it. Playing with a fifth player is likely not to happen very much, so the two that I'm much more likely to utilize are the 2 Hex Tiles and the ships. And those are neat, again, but the board, I don't like the way that was instituted, and the fifth player is not bad, but it is largely unnecessary. This is not the game that comes to mind when I think, you know what I want an extra player for, and what I need to bring out when I have 5, Taluva. So, there you go. Definitely would recommend you check out the base game, though, and only perhaps if you are, fall in love with this, then you could seek out the extension to the game. So that's it for me. Thanks for checking this out with me. I'm Z Garcia, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com.